Okay, I think this is where we stopped last week. So last week we stopped at where we created an empty app and using the online playground editor, and we're gonna now just continue have a look of what the template looks like. So I'm gonna go to, I think it's play, yeah. Okay, and so this is the empty apps that's created by the default, or the default app it will create. And is the text big enough?
So is it possible you can make it a bit bigger, please?
Okay. Now?
Yeah, that's fine, sir.
That's a bit ugly. Okay, let me just go full screen. Oops, I think I created these one. Okay, and in terms of let me just go back to slides. So I think we covered the interface of the playground. These are your folders and files, and these are the things you can drag and drop onto your code. For example, I can drag a button, move it here. It's slightly too difficult to know exactly where it's gonna put it. Let's hope. Okay, so it's end up here, but it says an add a button here, and just before this label, and you have to remove it anyway.
So if you press no thanks, it might look better, sir. On the
Sorry?
the right hand side on NativeScript, no thanks. Just get rid of that, it'll look better.
Sorry, there's some noise here. I couldn't quite hear you.
So on NativeScript on the screen you're sharing, so if you press that no thanks on the right hand side, the screen will look better.
On the far right.
The screen I share.
You know, you're
the tab which is open on the right hand side, we have prepared a few interactive tutorials for you. So if you can just close that one, kindly.
Oh. I think get started. No.
No, like all the way on the bottom, it says no thanks on the bottom.
There, okay. Yeah.
That's it, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So I can now see everything. Okay, well, so we're gonna go back to the slides. There's also some other things here, and a few things we use this QR code function, if we click. Ooh, maybe the first you have to create. It doesn't create anything. Usually it should show up a QR code. Let me refresh the page. And preview, okay. Or maybe click the QR code, should do the same thing. It shows out the QR code. And you need to install the native playground app and on the phone to see that. Okay, let's just go back to the slides. Okay, so this is the file we were looking at, which is this one, and that's the only component so far. So it has everything that will be shown in your app. Let me see what else we want to say here. Okay, and so this is a standard view single file components, or FSC, and with the template script and the CSS. Let me see if it will be easier if I take this one out. Oops. Is there any way I can turn this off? No, couldn't. Okay. Okay, and so let me make it slightly bigger. And first you can see it has a file extension called .view. So that's kind of like the file type for single file component in Vue. And it has this is fairly standard single file component. So it has a template component, which all the HTML-like code, which is the template, but this is using different tags. so like a page and label, etc. And also the script part. And again, that's almost the same as before. And finally, you have the style part, which was any CSS. So these are the, when you had the scopes, then all these formatting only apply to this and component. It does not affect any other component. Okay, as we said, and in the template part, and here you used to have all these different HTML elements, like say div, h1, etc. Now you use different and so-called NativeScript XML UI components, and they work very similar to the HTML elements, but they are not the same because the ways of. And first, they have different names, so they'll be called the page, action bar, label, or stack layout. Also, the way they included say the text inside the label is again different. So in a HTML, you would write a P and starting tag and followed by the text. So for example, in a HTML, you would write an P and then the text in the middle and then close the P tag. But here it's not, and you need to put the text that you want to display and assign as a value for an attribute called text. So basically have text equal to something, something. That's the actual text you want to display. Maybe I can do this, and doesn't look very pretty, but at least it does the job. So they're similar to HTML tags, but not exactly the same. Okay, and then we have the script part, and which is again, this part is identical to what you would have done in the SFC for the normal view file. And finally, the CSS section. Again, the CSS section will be identical. I guess you apply exactly the same, the CSS rules here. And the other thing, I think it's a convention you would prefer to use classes and to define which elements or which XML UI components you want to format. So it's much, I think potentially you can do it just as, for example, when you're formatting HTML page, you can say for H1, I want to say color is blue, something like this. And potentially you can do say, I want to have for page, which is the XML element. Then you say, okay, I want to set some settings for the page. And I think this one does not work in this online editor, but it works if you run locally, which we'll cover a little bit later on. And more commonly, you will give the page a class. Let's say called, I don't know, or to main file. And then you would instead say and format like this. So you specify the class or maybe an ID and then adding the formatting rule like this. So this is what we'll see a lot. That's generally kind of convention used in NativeScript because that's kind of recommended or the common way they do it in the formatting for NativeScript component. Okay, and then now we're going to have a closer look of the actual template, and which is this part. Okay, so first, it has this page element, and so it's almost like we said before, like a div or it's more like a body or body tag, which is kind of, you need that to include everything on the page. And then we have this action bar. Okay, what it does, it gives you this part of your display. So that's something unique. It only happens on apps. Say in a web page, you would not have something like an action bar. And so in this case, you say action bar title equal to home. That's why I have an action bar here, which has a text home there. And then we have scroll view and stack layout. So the scroll view allows you to scroll the page if it's longer, if it's say you cannot fit everything onto a single screen. So it's kind of like the text overflow control in HTML. That's this property you can set. And then the stack layout is just, that's actually more for the layout, which is slightly different. In HTML, you don't control the layout in using some tags like this or elements, and that's done in CSS. Whereas here, you use a specific tag to control the layout. So that means, and things will be stacked on top of each other, and by default, it's vertical. That means, and this label will be above this label, will be above this label. These three, and you can actually change the stack to say horizontal. And then this will be to the left of this one, and then to the left of this one. You can see example later on. Okay, and then this is probably something you will use a lot. That's how you display text and in NativeScript. And so the name of the element is called label. And then if you want to display a text, you have to say text equal to something, something, which is a bit different. You don't have a start labeling tag, put the text in the middle and then close it. Okay, and then if you want to say wrap text, you have to specifically say it as well. So by default, it will go outside and the screen, which is not very nice. But anyway, and so here we have 1 and 2 and 3 and label elements. Sorry, yeah. Oops, why it keeps giving me that? So that's why in this page or on the app, you can see, and these 3 paragraphs, each is a label. And then later on, we will see, for example, if you want to have a heading or something equivalent of H1 or H2 heading, and you need also use to label, but you just need to change the font size and maybe font style. Okay, and yeah. Okay, I think that's all in terms of what we want to talk about the template. So, okay, and if you want to use the online and editor, and you can, but it also allows you to make a backup on your own computer by using this download button. You can just click that, and which will generate you a zip file, and then which you can just say save onto your computer. And so it just includes and all these files here. So if I open it on my computer, it will be probably super tiny and you can't really see. No, I couldn't, and made the text any bigger. I'm pretty sure you couldn't see it, and it's super small. But you would have this file called NS Playground, and then expand it. You have all those files, which is these files here, and plus say the babel.config.js and a few other things allow you need to run it locally. Okay, and so this is one way to save the code. And okay, and when you do this the first time, and it will actually also show you the information of how to run this code locally. And so basically, once you download the file, and you can run it on your computer as well, instead of just saying run it and in the online editor. And so if you do that for the first time, and it would show you, actually, if I just cancel, and this is a screen which shows you the information to run it on your computer from your computer. Essentially, you don't edit the code, or you can edit the code on your computer using actual Visual Studio Code, for example. So these are the things you need to do. And first, you need to install NativeScript. And so the latest version, so that just means latest version of NativeScript, and you install globally. And just as you would install any other packages or node modules. So you install this globally because it's mostly providing command line tools. So this is the command line interface for NativeScript. And the way you install it, very similar to the command line tools for the view, which we discussed in previous lectures. In terms, for example, use that to create a template view app. Okay, and once you've done that, and it will take a while, and I already done that, so I don't need to install it again, and take maybe a few minutes, and then after that, and you just need to run TNS preview in the code folder. Then you should be able to see the, how do I say, should be able to run the code, and it will run, and very similarly as what would happen in the online editor, but it's run in the command line window, and it will generate a QR code which you can scan on your phone, which then starts the app on the phone. Okay, okay, maybe I will demonstrate this in a second. Yeah, I'm gonna demonstrate in a second. And also, I just want to make it clear, this is different from running the apps in an Android or iOS simulator. So I think early in the week, we talked about there's two ways you can run the apps. So one is run in a simulator. So that means a program running on your computer, which would have, say, it looks like the screen of the phone. Then it can display or run your code inside there. That's a simulator. And this one, you still run the code actually on your phone. It just says you started the code from your own computer instead of the online editor. That's the main difference. Okay. And the main difference is if you use it this way, you install NativeScript and then run TNS preview, you don't need Playground to run the app. Okay. And so because I already did this, but the first time, it would okay. And if you want to try to run TNS preview, you might get error message like this. Okay, and so essentially it's missing something which is said here. Okay, and that's one of the node modules or one of the dependencies is needed, and it didn't get installed because of that. And this is actually something you can see and from the package file. So let me start the Visual Studio Code. So I need to open. Okay, and I'm trying to open the folder, but this is on a different computer. So you can't see it yet, but it will come in a second. This is the playground here. Okay, let me maybe just do this on this screen so you can see as well. So first I make this bigger. And is the text big enough now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can
And
you
so
increase it a little bit? It's a little bit like,
is it a little bit what? Sorry?
yeah, small. Can you increase it?
Oh, still small. Okay.
I
Okay.
need glasses.
Okay. Yeah. Now, so first I can open the file and which I just downloaded before. And this part will be really small, which I can't really help. And that's part of the Mac, which you can't really change just using, say, Control+. And I think this will be the file. Okay, and then so you can see, as I said, and these files will be very similar to the ones you have in the actual app, which are these ones. You can app.css, app.js, have a component, and hello world.view is inside there. And if you look at here, you can look at the app, and you can have the app.css, which is the same as the one you have and in the browser. I'll move it here. So that's the app.css. And then there's app.js, which is the same before here as well. And then finally, inside the components, we had hello world.view, which is this one. And you will see the hello.world view. And you know this is the one we just created. Because, for example, you can see now the page has a class equal to main file, etc., etc. Yeah, and so that's exactly the same as.
So,
Yeah.
do you have any extension for NativeScript on VS Code, or it just picks up it all right?
Yes, and it does. And so I think I don't remember if I installed anything. And just go to the extension tab in Visual Studio Code, and no, I didn't. So if we just okay, so if we just search for NativeScript, and so this is the one I already installed.
Okay.
And just called NativeScript, and that is created by the people who make NativeScript. And you could, but I don't think that makes that much difference for in our cases, and it's mostly created to enable testing in NativeScript, and which will not talk too much about it, but you can use it if you want.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. And okay, let's go back to the actual code. Oops. Don't need this one. Yeah, so that's the one we're gonna need. Okay, and back to the slides. And the first thing is we were talking about here, we were saying if you want to run the NativeScript, you need to type in TNS preview in your command line. But the first time you run, you're gonna have a problem like this. I need to tell you some error. It's about this line of file. Okay. Maybe, yeah, maybe I can do. And no, I think it, because I already fixed this one now. So let me just try. Let me open a terminal window from the location where this file is, so I don't have to type it again. Okay, I'll try to make this terminal a bit bigger. Sorry, the text a bit bigger. Is this big enough? Can you read?
Yep.
Okay, so if I just do a pwd, yeah, or do ls. So you can see these are the files we have shown here. So these are the files. And the way you do it is you type TNS preview. And then it should try to, I'll probably have to do, no, maybe not. Okay, and this is what happens. It will try to get every file, all the files it needs. Wow, this is taking longer. Okay, so it starts moving now. Take a little while. Okay. Yeah. So it still have the same errors here. So this is error message, And I was trying to show you here. And so it's kind of starting from here. So this is just, this part just tell you, okay, there's a new version of NPN. You should update your NPN, and which is fine. But the error code, what I copied here is the same you got here from here to here. So you still have this. And so what caused it here, that's a bug. And in the JSON file, and that you downloaded, sorry, and the package.json file, you downloaded, you get when you download the code from native playground. Okay. And I'm not sure why they are still not fixing this bug, but I hope they will do quite soon. And so particularly, and it's concerned about this package, which is called Kingway NativeScript SDK 4.2.5. That's the main thing. So that's this one here. Okay. So what happens is, and these are all the dependencies when you first run, and the NativeScript CLI will try to download and install all these things. And then this one, this particularly module, this version is an older version and it's no longer available. That's why you get the error before, or maybe easier to just show you in the here. That's why you're getting these error. So they can't find it, they get removed, so that it's no longer available. Okay. And as it already showed you, so you can see this is the line of the code in the browser, which is actually to request the particular module. Okay. And so the latest version is 6.0.1. So that's actually what is available, and that's the latest version. So what you need to do is just to change this part, change the version to 6.0.1. Oh, 6 doesn't exist yet. And you save the package.json, and then you restart, and this should work. Okay, so that's what I did before, which I had error. If I run the same command again, so tns preview. Okay, and this again, they try to download all the node modules that's required. Again, the first time will take a little bit of time, and last time because I didn't finish everything, so still take a while to do everything. And then once you've done it the first time, after that, it will become much faster. Okay, so you can see we didn't get the error message. We get a few warnings. And that's okay. It's just deprecated. That means you're using something a bit old. Ah, okay. Still got error here. That's a bit different. Ooh.
So maybe your node is old version.
No, I think the node is, and the npm itself is old. It's the latest thing now. Parse node command failed. Verbals.
So when you did the changes in the package.json file, did you save the file, sir?
Yeah, and it should. If I do here, I think was display dependency. Dev dependencies are different because that's here, and so you can see this is already changed. No, and I think it's saying something. No, it's called. Oh, I don't know. And this shouldn't have this error. Okay, let me just make sure. MPN, I think is list global. Yeah, I do have. And so I'm trying to list all the global packages I installed. It says I installed NativeScript, so that should be fine. I have NPN version, which is 7.5.1, and which the latest I think was 7.6. I don't think that's gonna be any major issue. That's what it says here. Let me try. Is that because I don't have rights? So what I did is I add sudo as before, so that makes me using the super user essentially means I can make more changes to the system, which would not be allowed before. That's why I get asked the password. And that's only for Mac. I think on Windows, you might not have that difference. You don't have this something called sudo on Windows. Oops, I'm still having the errors. Okay, so it didn't work here. And I might have to use the other examples which I created before the lesson, so which I knew I was running. And very similar code, just at different location. Let me go there. Examples. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. Let's try here. Okay, and so this one is already have everything installed, so it's running. Which I already changed the settings here, so it's running. And so what happens? They give you this, and which is a command line version of the QR code. So this is instead of you having this displayed and in your browser like this, and it generated a version using basically the text, and instead of just changing the color to gray and black, and you need to use your phone to scan this one to start the app on your phone. And the same process as before. So you started the NativeScript view on your phone, and then choose scan, and you scan this, and it will run the app if everything goes fine. Okay, and we're going to demonstrate that a little bit later when we're actually making changes to the code. And for now, I'm going to skip just because we are running out of time. Yeah, and so this is what you see here, and you can scan that with your phone. You should see. Okay, and so in terms of using Playground, and either local, either in the cloud, which means you're using this online editor, or locally. So if you use local, you can use your favorite editor, for example, Visual Studio Code, even though this is something similar to Visual Studio Code, but it's not exactly the same. There's still lots of features which cannot be implemented in the online version. And you don't need Playground server to preview it, to preview the app. Essentially, if for whatever reason this website is no longer working, you can still preview the app. But if you're not using this server, you still need internet, and then you can send the app to your phone. Otherwise, that's not going to work. You still need internet always. Okay, and in terms of cloud, so you have the features. For example, you can drag and drop these things, so you don't have to write code. And what I found is sometimes it is a bit, and how do I say, difficult to control. For example, where you actually put the code. To me, I wouldn't say this is a critical thing I need. Something nice to have. And you can have a list of many different things here in the online editor. Okay, and also you don't need a local installation, and because it needs to download quite a few node modules to make it run locally. Okay, and for this module, I'm gonna try to use local playground, and because I had some issues when trying to save the code in the online version, and that only happened to me. And I think other people seem to be working okay, fine. And I'm going to show you more later. And also, the local version seems to have a later native script. So this is when you previously run the code. What will be the fastest way? So in the previous, before you can do TNS preview, and you need to run this line of code, and which installs the latest version of NativeScript CRI that includes in the latest version of NativeScript. Whereas that's 7.2, which I think just showed you in this tab. Okay, let me clear this. And that's one of these commands here. And so you can see here, I have the 7.2 installed on my local machine. And whereas the online version seems to be using the older one, which is only version 6.5. Okay, there is some difference between these two versions, you will notice. And most basic commands still okay. And I forgot where I checked the online version now. And maybe it just says somewhere on the website. So there will be some difference. Okay. But for the most things we need to do for the coursework, and it will be completely fine, there will be no difference. So for me, it's mainly I had some issues when trying to save the code online. That's why I recommend to use, or I personally want to use the local version. Okay, and to save the program online, and so what you can do is, and everything you type in the code editor, and it's so saved automatically. So, okay, and you can also click Save button, which will save your latest version. Okay, and just that's the Save button, which is here, which is clicked. Okay, but say just as what you would have done. Okay. So later on, if you need to go back to that particular code, you need to save the URL, and which is the URL here. So every time you make changes, or you make a save, and the URL might change, but that's all you need. So next time you go to, if you want exactly the same code as you before, instead of starting with an empty template every time, that's the URL you need to. Okay. And so obviously this is not ideal. For example, if you have multiple files or you're working on different projects and you don't want to have the one URL or have to remember one URL for each different things. And so what the playground allows you to do is you can actually save different projects and different versions of the same project. So to use this, and you will have to log in first, create an account. Okay, and so that's this button here. And you can choose whether to allow it to collect some information to help you. And then after logging, and you should have this tab there, which is not before. So if you look at here now, we don't have a project option here. But after I log in, it doesn't even allow me to click on the login button. Let me try again. I want to log in and do I have to agree or okay? Now you have to click any login, and these are some options, and you can use GitHub or Google accounts, etc. Let's say I'm using my GitHub account. Okay, it doesn't work for me. I remember that. So I have to use Google, I think, in my case. Okay.
No, GitHub is not working, sir, for me as well.
Yeah. So it's same here, and I have to use Google. And so maybe that's another thing, say the local one might be a bit better in the sense you have full control of how to save everything. Okay, anyway, so my issue is so after you log in, so first your name should show up here, and you should also have these projects here. Then you can give your thing a name and say, then it will be saved here. Okay, so let me just go to the next slide. So if I click the project now, and you can see these are the previous projects I saved. And for each project, you can have different versions. So for this one, I have 4 versions, version 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the other one has 17 versions, obviously much more than the first one. And in my editor, I can maybe, let's say 45 demo, and then I choose save. Okay, and it should show up here a new project called CST3145 and had a version 1, but it didn't work for me, and I didn't have that. And you could try. So if you change your name and click save, it should create a new project for you. But it didn't. Somehow it didn't work for me. And then if it's working for you, every time you click the save button, it should save a new version. Okay, and then however, for whatever reason, I was not able to create new projects. And that's when I last tested it on the 11th of February. Again, so that's a reason why I'm not recommending using Playground. And so if, let's say, we can open a previous one. Let me call new demo. And then click save. Okay, it says project saved successfully. And if I go to project, you can see this is now called a new demo because I give it a name. Now it has version 5. Previously it was 4. So they saved a new version, depends on whatever change I made. And somehow I couldn't create a new project again. Might not happen to everyone, but I'd say that's maybe another reason not to use online editor. But for this module, the coursework, you can choose either to use the Play online editor or the local one, and either is fine. You can do, should be able to do it. It's just a personal choice. Okay, and so that's everything in terms of what we haven't covered the last week. So we're going to continue now to basically continue with the NativeScript view. And let me start the new lecture slides. Okay, and let me just check in terms how we are doing in terms of time. Okay, and so we are about halfway into the, where's my calendar? Downloads, terminal. I couldn't find that. Okay. Anyway, I'm sure I'll get it back. Okay. Yeah, so we're about halfway through. So now we'll just continue with NativeScript. Okay, and yeah, this is what we covered last week, or including what we did just before and these slides. we covered NativeScript, how it works. We spent quite a bit of time looking at native and playground, the default app it creates, and then setting up the local playground. That's what we just covered. And in terms of setting up local playground, you just have to install the NativeScript CRI, and that's all you need. And then you can start with TNS preview of your actual app. Okay, and so what we're going to do now is we're going to refactor the pet shop example and to NativeScript. That's what we're going to do starting from this week. And I'm pretty sure we will not be able to cover everything this week. So we'll finish next week, which will be the actually last lecture for the module. Okay, and what you really need to do is say previously the pet shop example, we're using all these HTML elements called body, p, etc. The main job you need to do is just convert these. Instead of using this, you have to use the XML element in NativeScript, like the page and label. That's the main thing you need to do in terms of refactoring. Okay, and some of the tags will be similar or the same, like a button. Button actually code is the same. The way to work is not identical. And then, for example, there's some other changes, which is just because the two are working differently, like the layout. And you need to use something like a stack layout to control the layout. And instead of doing that in the CSS. Okay, and so the way we're going to do is we're going to start with the app template created by Playground. So basically that's an empty thing with nothing in it. And then we move the code and from the old pet shop to the Playground template, and then making changes along the way, necessary changes along the way. Okay, and as I mentioned, the JavaScript part, you shouldn't need to change at all. So mostly the template part, and you need to change. Okay, let's see code. Let's go back to the code editor. Okay. I think this is the one which was working now, and I just want to check everything. No, I think this is still the older one, which we was not able to get it to run somehow. Let me just try one last time.
So you recommend working locally, right? Locally instead of
Yes, I recommend using it locally, and because I know there's some problems with online one in terms of saving, and also the local one has a slightly later version of the NativeScript, and it might have something you want to do, but nothing is required by the courseware. Let me just try one last time. I'll try to run this one locally, and if it doesn't work, I'll change that to the other version I prepared a bit earlier. So these are warnings. So it's deprecated, that means that's okay, it still works. And it just says these are the older versions, you really shouldn't update your module version in the package.json file. Okay, it seems that we still have the same error, so we can't really don't have time to figure this one out. So we're gonna go to, so it's just, all these just means something wrong in terms of installing node modules, has nothing to run in terms of your code. Let's go to week 20. Okay, let me just try one last time, and I will go to the website, the Playground website. I'm gonna, yeah, so this is we're gonna create, oops, a new, I can say, I'll close on this side. Oops. I'll create a new one. View. Oh, now I have a template loading error. Okay. Okay, let's just go back to the default one. Okay, and I'm gonna download this. I'm going to save this locally. Okay, let's save it there. Okay. Code. Give me a second. I'm now gonna I'm gonna open that. So this is another copy, and which is just downloaded with the empty. You can see these are all the files. Okay, let's just try one last time. So you run TNS preview, that essentially to run the app or run the playground code essentially, and to install all these different packages. Sorry, and it's definitely gonna fail the first time. That's because the errors we know before in terms of that particular file. So you need to open demo playground. Yeah. So we need to change the package.json file. This one, and I think it was 6.0.1. And then we rerun it here. Hopefully it will work. Oops, no, still give me this error. GYP course. Okay, I have to find out what that error is. Okay, and in terms of actual code, so we have to go back to the examples I prepared before. That would be no, none of these. Let's go to the module. So in this case, the code is already finished. Okay, and maybe I can just show you what it looked like and with the finished code. Yeah, so okay. So I have to. Oh, I'm not even sure my phone will be able to pick up this one, and so. Well, shit. I will join the meeting from my phone. And you should be able to let me share my phone screen. Okay, and so you're seeing my phone now. I'm using my Playground app. I'll click scan QR code, and I'll try to scan this code generated in the command line tools. Yeah, I think the contrast between the black and the gray is not very big, so it's having difficulties picking up the. Let me try again by using display on a different monitor. Okay, or the alternative would be I will run this from my command line, which usually generates a more contrasty QR code. Just 1 second. Okay. Sorry. Still try to. Still try to run it on command line first. WD. Okay. Oh, no. This is the wrong place. And it's probably gonna fail in a second. Yeah, I'm gonna try use this one here. So this should be the right place. Okay, let's see if this one works better. Okay, now you can see the phone. Just take a little bit of time. First time, try to load this. Okay, and so this is what the final thing would look like on the phone. And so we have 2 tabs at the bottom, one called the product list and the other called checkout, and you can tap on them to change. And then if you want to add anything to the cart, it says just tap on product to add to cart. So I can tap on product 1. You will say, okay, product 1 added, and then add product 3 added, and then add product 2. Okay. And then now if I switch to the checkout tab, if I click the just checkout tab, okay, it says checkout form coming soon. So at this stage, I don't have anything displayed here yet. That will be covered in the next lecture. Okay, and so this will be something we want to complete first, and then next week we're gonna fix the checkout form. Okay, and so this is what it will look like at the end. Okay. Yeah.
Are we putting images as well?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Putting a picture and just using, I think, called image or figure element. But for the demonstration purpose, I'm just going to do text.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave that as it is. Or maybe how do I stop the camera on the phone? So. Okay. Okay, and let's get back to the slides. So we still need this, so we're not going to run this here in the command line, and because the problem, the QR code is not contrasty enough, and instead we're going to do in the command line tool, so we need to generate the QR code. Okay, so in the slides, and what we're going to have a look at is just the folder structure created by the Playground for you. Okay, and then so as already mentioned,
So we can't see the slides.
oh yes, yes, of course. And I forgot to share the screen again. Okay, sorry, you should be able to see the slides now. And so, slightly bigger again. And so these are the files and folders created for you. And when you download it from the app playground, so it can be a zip file. When you unzip, these are the things in there. Okay, and then so by default, you would have a file inside the components, which is called hello world.view. That's the main file. And you write your code. That's the one created for you. Okay, and that's all we really need to focus on today. There's many other things and different folders, MP modules, platforms, app resource, etc. We don't really have to worry about them at all. We just leave them as they are. And so we're going to just focus on this hello world view to start with. Okay, and just to show you, this file is exactly the same as we had before, or as we downloaded from the option. What did I do? Yeah, so that's the wrapping. So you have this very simple template, and with 3 labels display 3 lines of text. That's all it is. Okay. So the hello world view and will serve as the root component. So we're going to make the product list and checkout as 2 child components, add to the root component. Okay, and this is the hello world view files, and we just went through that early on in the early part of the lecture, so I'm not going to go through it again here. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to turn that into pad shop. So to do that, we'll just have a look at what the pad shop code looks like, and assume probably forgot now. So that's the code or the template part. And for the pet shop and single file components. Okay. And so, yeah, and if you remember previous one in the examples, and we showed the example with we created 2 child components. One is called product list, and the other one is called checkout, and we use that in the main component. In terms of actual template, and it has a header, display a heading. You can use H1 or use some data properties or just put text there. So this is the button, and which is the checkout button. If you click, it will switch between the product list and checkout page. And then finally, in the main of the HTML part, it just have these 2 components. Okay, and the idea would be, say, if you click this button, click the checkout button, and it will display either the product list or checkout. But for this particular example, we didn't do that part. We just display both of them on the same app. Okay, and this is the part in the main component in terms of for the script. So this is the part you almost don't have to make much changes. We said for this part you have to, because you can't use the header or H1, these have to be all replaced. So you have to make some changes. But here for the script, and you more or less just don't need to change much. You can use the same as before to do these. And so you import 2 child component, and you register them here. Say these are the 2 components that I'm going to use. And then in the data, and it has to be a function instead of a JSON object, and in return. So this is definitely needed. You need a cart, an array to save the lessons or products added to the cart. And this is optional. This is what we did before. Just a simple way to demonstrate how to use data attributes and view. Okay. And here we need this function and called the show checkout, and we didn't implement. But what it meant to do is says when this button is clicked, it will run show checkout function, which would switch between the list and the checkout pages. So we show that how that's done in the even earlier than like a first coursework, where you just change a value which would switch between the two views. Okay, and this add to cart function is just say add items into the cart, just to push the product into the cart. And as we mentioned before, and you should call this, and when you get an add product or whatever the event you named from the product list, and then when you receive the event, you would trigger this particular function which would add product to the cart. Okay, and this is the product list view, and so that's one of the child components, which is to list the products. And so it has this v4, which goes through the products array, and then for each product, you would add these things. You can have the title, you maybe have a picture, you add descriptions, price, and availability, etc. And finally, you have a button. And so we'll do something very similar here, and we need to create a new view component. Again, have to replace all these HTML elements into NativeScript element. And again, it's just for the demonstration purpose, we might not include everything. For example, we're not going to include in the picture or not the description. But these things are all fairly straightforward to add. The way to add them is the same way you did for view before. You don't have to change those. But we do need this button, which when it's clicked, it should call this particular function, which should just emit an event and also pass along the product being added to and the array. Okay, so that's the script part for the product list component, and it had a name. So okay, here I have a products array with the list of the information of the products. So again, just to make it a bit easier for demonstration purpose, and you could just use your JavaScript code or the one you did before the fetch to get to the list of products or lessons from your backend. And that's probably the preferred way because that's what you will be using for your coursework. And in terms of it's just one function, and it will do is to emit an event called add product, which will be picked up by the parent component, and then actually add this product, which passed to the parent to the array, which again inside of the parent component. Okay, and this is just display some message just for debugging purpose. So I know it's actually an running this function is try to add products.
So on the coursework page, I think you put it down as fetch it from JSON.json file, product.json file.
You mean here?
Yeah. In the actual coursework over there, you put it up. You need to fetch it from product.json file.
Oh, really?
You fetch it, and we can do it from fetch.
Let me just double check. I think the requirements would be actually to ask you to get it from the backend.
Okay, because I checked it yesterday. It says from JSON.
Okay, let me just check the latest version, what I said. Assessment, coursework 3. Apologies, these are super tiny text, but the PDF I would be able to change. Okay, so I guess for the PDF files, you should be able to see, right? You're saying I'm asking you to. Sorry, can you point me out where did I say that in terms of JSON? Sorry, say lesson.json or.
So I think I got the older version of the thing.
Handbook. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I do apologize.
Oh, that's fine. Yes, I would just say. I think I would mention you want to get it from here. So there's some marks. For example, the lesson information should be retrieved from MongoDB. So that counts maybe for 1 point or something.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, we go back to the actual slides. Yeah, and again, so for this part, and you don't really need to change much, and just using the components you did before. For example, if you did that already for the group work, the last group work, and it should be more or less the same here. And if you didn't use fetch here, and you might need to add to that, for example, you might do the fetch in the actual create or mounted stage as a function inside there, or as those things. So basically, you can just use that from your second coursework if you have done that already. The form, okay. So the form is another child component which is meant to do the checkout, and this is the code when we did add a single file component, and because time, and also we're not going to change that until next week, so we're going to skip this part for now. I mean, it's quite simple as well. Okay. So as I said here, so first I'm going to rename the hello.what.view to app.view, and just to make it consistent. And so because I already have that here, let me rename this one to something called, let's say, pet store or pet shop. Okay. And then okay, and this also would require to update this file app.js in the root folder, and because if you remember, this is under the components folder. The main file is this .app.js, and it decides which component and get loaded. And so here it currently loads from .components/app, and because that's the other things I created, I named this one component, I called it app. Okay, but now I'm gonna call it pet shop. Sorry, in app.js, I'm gonna say /components/ and pet shop. Okay, and I'm gonna using the components is now called and pet shop. Let me see if here I called I didn't name this one. Okay, so I assume we can let's still just call it pet shop. Well, I thought I would have named this pet shop somewhere. Oh no, I didn't. Okay. Yeah. Okay, and so here, I remember now, and you call this one pet shop is because you give a name here, right? So you import this component, which is the file, and you give the name called pet shop, and then you use that name here, just whatever you define here. Okay, so that's what the change you need to do for the app.js part, which is a root file, which essentially decides which component will be the root component to get loaded when you try to run the app. In this case now, we're going to using the pet shop, which is inside petshop.view file, which is this one here. Okay, and then as I said, if you look at, this is what the code comes with, and the online playground template. And the first element is page, which is a top level element. It's kind of like the body. And then you have the action bar. Maybe this time we're going to call it pet shop, for example. So instead of just say something generic. And then the label. Okay, so after the action bar, we need a label. Otherwise, NativeScript will give you an error for some reason. So it's like say you need something on the page, not just an action bar. Okay, and so we can actually delete everything else here now. Okay. As we said, we had the page, we had action bar, and we can have a label and the text. The actual text will be completely up to you. And then we'll say class equal to h2. And you always need to close the label, and you can use this slash and angle bracket, which means we don't need another slash label tag. Okay, and here the h2 are used, and the class equal to h2 is a predefined class in NativeScript. And then there's no element because you don't have h1 or h2 in NativeScript, and you have to use a class equal to h1, h2 instead. And just to make it as similar to HTML possible, so NativeScript will name this class h1, h2, which is the same name. Okay. And also the other thing I did here is you can set the styles or format an element as you would do in HTML using inline CSS, in the sense you say style, which is the name of the property, and then format, the actual CSS formatting as a value. Here I set the background to a color called azure, so that's this color here. Okay. Okay, let me see what will be the best thing to do. Okay, so I already made changes here. So if I save the code, and I should be able to run the app on my phone now, and it should look at this. I had a pet shop, which is what I did or added in the actual action bar. And I changed I had a one line of text is welcome to the pet shop, and which is this line here. And the other thing I did is I made the h2 formatting for this and then changed the background. Okay, so let me share the screen on my phone again. You can stop the video. Finally. Start share my screen. Okay, and then I go to my app. Okay, and so the preview app is still loading the old one. So I need to restart this one. So I go to, well, there's too many tabs. Okay, and so what I'm doing here is I'm restarting the local server or the TNS preview. So basically, I'm just going to run that again on my phone. Sorry, on the computer, which you can't see now. Come on, make it smaller. Okay, and so to do that, I need to go back to my NativeScript and rescan the code. And if everything goes okay, and we still try to recompile everything on my computer, which you can't really see. Okay, yeah. So now this is what we have. And in this particular case, we have the action bar. We had the text, which is welcome to the pet store, pet shop, and with misspelled and the. Yeah, so and the background color of the app is white. That's all fine. And so this is exactly the new app we are currently building now. And just go back to the code here. Okay, and certainly, for example, I want to fix this one here. Okay, and also, and by default, and it set the label color to blue. And this is also something I tested it before, tried to test. And then it will change the text here. I think I mentioned before, the preferred way or the traditional way to change any elements is to give it a class and then set the CSS formatting. And this one would work if you run it from your computer using TNS preview. And this one would not work if you do it in the online browser, and it somehow just doesn't work. Maybe just because that's because of different versions of NativeScript view you have. And if I still have this one here, okay, for example, I could try to run this app, and I would add a label and then color blue. So this will try to set all the text in the app to blue. And then if I run the app, on my phone, it needs to share screen again. Okay, and so you can see this is still the same app, and the text on that is not changing to blue. Whereas, say, for example, when you do it locally, it would work in the sense, and if you run this code on your laptop, and this part would work. I think that's probably because the local one runs a later version of the NativeScript. And okay. Yeah, so this is what the app would look like, except here we didn't change the background color for this part to like a light blue or azure color. So it's still white on in our app. Okay. So that's what we changed the background color.
So we can't see your screen.
Oh, yes, of course. Okay. Okay. So that's what the app would look like, and except the background will be currently is white, and the text we actually changed to blue. Here it didn't change, so it's still black. Yeah. Okay. And so these are the existing lines, and in this app.css file, or maybe I should use this version. You can see we had a look of this app.js file. We'll have to use that to load the actual components. And then in this app.css, we have these lines. Okay, and so this is the kind of core CSS for NativeScript, and you always need it. And for example, it defines h1, h2. I'll define it here. And then the second line, which is this one, and is the different color schemes, and that the NativeScript supports. And by default, it picks this one called Aqua. Okay, so that's why the here we have this kind of colored action bar, and that's because it's set using this second line. And you can set, say, other things here which will apply to all components. You said if it's have a class called the button and its size will be 18. Okay, and you can change the second line to different colors. And you can change this to default. I can't remember. I think that's something like a gray or blue. These are the available ones you can potentially use. Change the second part. Okay, and so if you change that to default, you can see the action bar, the color changes. I think this may affect some other elements as well, but default basically means the main color will be this kind of very light gray or white. Okay, and themes affects how the formatting works, and it tried to make the looks very similar to CSS, but it's not like the same. And so we already saw the example because we don't have these H1, H2 elements. We're going to be using H1 and H2 class. Okay, and normal text. So for example, if you want to, okay, so first, if you want to display text, and you always have to use, come on, label. And if you want to normal text, which is by default, you have in HTML, which you don't have to set everything here, and you have to set the class equal to body. So here we are using heading, so I say class equal to H2. And for normal text, you have to say class equal to body. Okay, and if you want to align text, again, that's a CSS in normal CSS HTML. And here you have to, again, using class, you have to say class text left and text center and text right. So for example, if I wanted this one to be center, I have to type something like this. So this line of text will then be centered.
So the text center, you can use it on the action bar as well?
Potentially, we could try. It's not guaranteed, and it will always work on all the elements.
Yes.
Text center. Okay. Again, so if you want to bold or italic, you have to say font weight bold as a class or font italic. Let's do this one here just for fun. Font italic. Okay, and so have been making changes here, and then it should automatically update on your phone. Oh no, it doesn't. Because I haven't really. So I made these changes. Now if I switch back to my switch to the phone, you should see the changes. But before that, I just want to, okay, let's do that first. So I need to again get my QR code ready. Where's this? And sorry, which screen are you seeing? Are you seeing my phone or the computer screen?
Your PC, sir, at the moment.
Okay.
Computer screen. Sophia.
Yeah. Okay, and let me, so you can see now I have the QR code up, so I can now switch to my phone. Then I'm gonna scan the QR code. Okay, and it should display our app, which now should has a new formatting. Okay, so you can see now the text is centered, so text center worked. And
So
italic also working. You can see the welcome to Pet Shop is italic, but we did the class equal to text center for the action bar, and it didn't work. The action bar is still on the left. I think for the action bar, it's a bit different. Action bar itself is not a text. That's where you actually usually would add your menu items. Like you have these hamburger menus and other things. That's why you add to the action bar. That's a bit different. It's not just text. So I guess that's why the text center is not working there. Okay, and yeah, I think we'll stop there now, and we're running out of time. We're going to continue next week. Keep building our pet store app. Let me stop the